Claire stood in front of the mirror, her hands shaking slightly as she adjusted her veil. Today was her wedding day, the day she had dreamed about for years. She smiled at her reflection, whispering to herself, "Everything will be perfect." Her mother squeezed her hand and said, "You deserve this happiness, Claire." Outside, soft music played as guests filled the seats. The air was full of excitement and laughter. Claire took a deep breath and began walking down the aisle, her heart beating fast when she saw Ethan, her soon-to-be husband, waiting at the altar. His smile made her feel safe, or so she thought. Just as the ceremony was about to start, a sudden murmur moved through the crowd. Heads turned. The doors at the back of the hall opened, and everyone went silent. It was Haley, Claire's younger sister, walking in slowly, wearing a long, beautiful white gown. Not cream. Not silver. White. The same color as the bride. Gasps filled the room. A few guests covered their mouths in shock. The music faltered. Claire froze. Her heart sank as her eyes met Haley's. Haley gave a nervous smile, pretending nothing was wrong. Claire forced herself to smile too, but it felt fake. Her throat tightened. Inside, confusion and hurt swirled like a storm. Why would her sister wear white on her wedding day? She looked toward Ethan. His face had gone pale. He tried to keep his eyes on Claire, but she noticed something. He looked scared. The priest began speaking, and the ceremony moved forward. But Claire's mind was spinning. She could hear whispers in the crowd. Isn't that her sister? Why is she wearing white? How disrespectful. Claire tried to focus on Ethan's vows, on the sound of his voice, but her eyes kept drifting to Haley, who stood nearby, her hands shaking slightly. Then in the middle of the vows, Claire saw something she couldn't unsee. Ethan leaned slightly toward Haley and whispered something under his breath. Haley's face froze. Her lipstick trembled. For a moment, the world around Claire went quiet. The music, the laughter, even the priest's voice, everything faded. She could only see Ethan's lips moving, Haley's trembling hands, and the guilt written all over both their faces. A cold wave of realization hit her chest. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. She smiled again, pretending everything was fine. She repeated her vows like nothing had happened. But inside, her heart was breaking piece by piece. The guests clapped. The photographer took pictures. The ceremony went on. But behind the smiles and the flowers, an invisible storm had begun. One that would soon destroy everything Claire believed in. This was not the start of a happy marriage. It was the beginning of a painful truth waiting to explode. The responsible older sister who raised Haley after their father abandoned the family, that was Claire. From the time she was 18, she became more of a parent than a sibling. When their father walked out, leaving behind unpaid bills and a heartbroken mother, Claire took charge. She worked 2 jobs, gave up her university scholarship, and made sure Haley finished school. Every dream she had, traveling, studying, even falling in love, was pushed aside so Haley could have a chance at a better life. Haley, for years younger, was always different. She was the charming one, the kind who could smile her way out of trouble. People loved her easily, teachers, neighbors, even strangers. But her sweetness often came with carelessness. She spent money without thinking, dated men who hurt her, and always expected Claire to clean up the mess. Their mother saw the difference clearly. She used to warn Claire, "You give too much, my child. One day they'll take until you have nothing left." Claire would only smile and say, "She's my sister, Mom. Family is family." And that was how it always went. When Haley lost her first job, Claire paid her rent. When Haley broke up with her boyfriend and cried for days, Claire stayed up every night to comfort her. When Haley stole money from their mother's purse to buy a dress, Claire lied and said she took it, just to protect her sister from shame. Over the years, Claire learned to live quietly. She didn't expect gratitude anymore. Haley would hug her, say thank you, and then repeat the same mistakes. But Claire still believed in love, in goodness, in second chances. Then came Ethan. Ethan was everything Claire thought she needed. A calm, well-spoken lawyer who worked on legal aid cases, helping people who couldn't afford justice. They met at a community event. He was polite, attentive, and he made her feel seen. Something she hadn't felt in years. For once, she allowed herself to fall in love. Her mother was happy but cautious. "He's handsome, yes," she said, "but too polished. Sometimes people like that hide cracks under the shine." Claire laughed it off. She didn't want to hear warnings anymore. She wanted to believe this was her time. When Ethan proposed, Haley screamed louder than anyone. She was overjoyed, hugging her sister tightly. "You deserve this," she said with tears in her eyes. She offered to help plan the wedding, choosing flowers, tasting cakes, handling decorations. It seemed like a sweet gesture, but something about her energy felt forced. She became overly helpful, showing up at every appointment, texting Ethan about arrangements, offering to save Claire some stress. Claire thought it was thoughtful at first. Her sister was finally showing responsibility. But sometimes, when Claire entered the room unexpectedly, Haley's smile would vanish too quickly. When Ethan's phone buzzed, he'd move away before answering. Claire brushed off the unease. "It's just stress," she told herself. "They're both trying to help." Still, her mother's words echoed in her head. "You give too much, Claire." As the wedding day drew closer, the house filled with laughter, music, and the smell of fresh flowers. Haley was always nearby, smiling, joking, fussing over details. She was the maid of honor, after all, the symbol of sisterly love and closeness. But late at night, when Claire sat alone checking her guest list or ironing her dress, a strange feeling would creep in. A quiet voice whispering that something was wrong. Haley's kindness seemed too perfect. Her eyes lingered too long when Ethan was around. Sometimes, Claire would walk in and see them sharing a quiet laugh, and they'd stop suddenly when they noticed her. Claire tried to ignore it. She wanted peace. She wanted her wedding to be beautiful, to finally have her happy ending after a lifetime of sacrifice. And Haley, with her soft smile and nervous laughter, made sure no one saw the tension growing underneath. To everyone else, the sisters looked inseparable. But inside, something unseen was shifting. A crack forming between love and betrayal, one that would soon split open and change everything. The night before the wedding, Claire couldn't sleep. Her mind was full of excitement and nervous thoughts. She went downstairs to get a glass of water, and stopped when she heard quiet voices coming from the kitchen. When she peeked inside, she saw Ethan and Haley standing close together, talking in low tones. Their faces looked serious. The moment they noticed her, they stepped apart quickly, too quickly. Claire froze in the doorway. "What's going on?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, nothing serious," he said lightly. "We were just talking about a little surprise for you tomorrow." Haley nodded quickly, but her face had turned pale. "Yes," she added, forcing a laugh. "Just something small, you'll see." For a moment, no one said anything. The silence felt heavy. Claire looked from one to the other. Haley's hands were trembling slightly, and Ethan avoided her eyes. Something felt wrong, but Claire didn't want to cause drama the night before her wedding. She smiled weakly and said, "Okay, just don't stay up too late. Big day tomorrow." They both nodded, and she turned to leave. But as she walked away, she couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen. The distance in Ethan's eyes, the guilt on Haley's face. That night, when Claire finally got into bed, she tried to calm herself. "It's nothing," she whispered to herself. "I'm just tired. They love me. Everything is fine." Just as she was about to fall asleep, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Haley. "You'll always be my best friend," it said. "I hope tomorrow doesn't change that." Claire stared at the words for a long time. Something about them made her heart ache. What could that mean? Why would tomorrow change anything? She typed a reply. Of course it won't, but then deleted it. Instead, she put her phone aside and turned off the light, hoping morning would bring peace. But the next day did not bring peace. The wedding morning was bright and full of laughter. Makeup artists moved around, friends helped with decorations, and the smell of flowers filled the room. Everyone was smiling, except Haley. She looked nervous, distracted, and kept checking her phone. When it was time for the ceremony, Claire took a deep breath, ready to step into her dream. But just as the music began, a sudden murmur ran through the crowd. People turned their heads toward the door. Haley was walking in, wearing a long, elegant white dress, the same color as Claire's. The air went silent. Guests whispered to each other. Claire's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she thought it was a joke, but one look at Haley's trembling smile told her it wasn't. Claire forced herself to keep calm. "She doesn't mean anything by it," she whispered to herself. "She just made a bad choice." But when the ceremony began, Claire saw Ethan's face. He looked pale, nervous. And when his eyes met Haley's, something unspoken passed between them. Then during the vows, Ethan leaned slightly toward Haley and whispered something. Haley froze. Her lips trembled. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly looked down. In that instant, Claire felt her stomach twist. She didn't know what Ethan said, but she knew it wasn't about love. It was fear. It was guilt. Her hands shook as she repeated her vows. She smiled for the cameras, hugged her guests, and pretended everything was perfect. But deep inside, her heart whispered a truth she didn't want to hear. This wasn't about a white dress or attention. It was about a secret between the two people she trusted most. A secret waiting to destroy everything. Reception. Claire stood in the middle of the beautifully decorated hall, smiling for photos and thanking guests, but inside, she was falling apart. The whispers around her were hard to ignore. Did you see her sister? One woman murmured. Wearing white to her own sister's wedding, shameful. Another said softly. Claire forced a smile as she passed them. Her hands trembled slightly, and her cheeks hurt from pretending everything was fine. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the music, all of it felt distant. She could only think about Haley's white dress, Ethan's whisper, and the look they shared during the vows. Haley wasn't anywhere to be seen. When Claire asked around, someone said she had gone to the restroom, looking upset. Ethan, on the other hand, stayed busy, shaking hands, thanking guests, and keeping his eyes away from Claire. After a while, Claire quietly slipped away from the crowd and walked toward the restroom. She found Haley standing by the sink, her makeup smudged, breathing heavily. Haley, Claire said gently, stepping closer. What's going on? Haley turned quickly, forcing a smile. Nothing. I just needed a minute. It's been a long day. Claire crossed her arms. What did Ethan say to you during the vows? Haley froze for a second, then laughed weakly. He didn't say anything. You must have imagined it. Don't lie to me, Claire said quietly. I saw your face. You looked like you'd seen a ghost. Haley looked down. Tears filled her eyes. I can't talk about it, she whispered. Why not? Claire asked, her voice breaking. You're my sister. I deserve to know. Haley wiped her face and turned away. Please, Claire. Just let it go. Claire felt something heavy settle in her chest. Let it go, she repeated softly. You walked into my wedding wearing white. Ethan can't look at me, and you want me to let it go? Haley bit her lip, her eyes red. I didn't mean to cause trouble. But before Claire could press further, someone called her name from the hallway. She turned to see a group of guests waving her over for photos. When she looked back, Haley had already slipped out. The rest of the evening went on painfully slow. Claire moved through it like a ghost, smiling for everyone, pretending to enjoy her first dance as a married woman. But Ethan's hand felt cold in hers, his eyes distant. Later, Claire noticed Ethan stepping outside to take a phone call. Something about his nervous glance made her follow quietly. She stayed hidden near the door, her heart pounding. Ethan's voice was low, almost a whisper. It's over, he said. She can't know it was you. Claire froze. She can't know it was you. Her stomach turned. Her mind raced. Who was he talking to? Haley? When Ethan hung up and turned around, he nearly jumped seeing her standing there. Claire. You scared me. Who were you talking to? She asked softly. No one. Just a client. Don't lie to me, she said, her voice trembling. I heard you. You said, she can't know it was you. What does that mean, Ethan? He sighed, rubbing his temples. Claire, you're tired. You're imagining things. You've been under so much stress. Don't do that, she whispered. Don't make me feel crazy. I'm not, he said too quickly. Please, let's just enjoy tonight. Don't ruin it with suspicion. Claire looked into his eyes, but all she saw was fear, not love. She turned away before she could cry. You're hiding something, she said quietly. And I'll find out what it is. Hours later, the reception started to die down. Guests left with laughter and gifts, unaware that the bride's heart was breaking. Claire noticed Haley slipping away quietly, heading toward the parking lot. Something in her gut told her to follow. Outside, the night air was cold. Claire found Haley standing near her car, wiping her tears with shaking hands. Haley, Claire called. Haley turned, startled. Claire, please go back inside. No. Not until you tell me the truth. Haley's lips quivered. I can't. Yes, you can. I deserve to know. For a long moment, Haley said nothing. Then she broke down sobbing. It happened before you met him. A year before. Ethan and we were together. Claire felt the world spin around her. What? Haley cried harder. He told me it was over. He said he'd never tell you, that it meant nothing. When he met you, he said it was different, that you were the one. I believed him. I stayed quiet. Claire's breath caught in her throat. And you didn't think to tell me? You let me fall in love with him. I thought it was over. Haley cried. But then a few weeks ago, I found out he lied. It wasn't over when he met you. It overlapped. Claire stumbled back, her chest tight. The whisper. What did he say to you today? Haley looked down, whispering through tears. He begged me not to tell you. Silence filled the parking lot. The music from the hall sounded distant, like it was from another world. Claire's eyes filled with tears. You both lied to me, she said softly. You both looked me in the eye and pretended. Haley tried to reach for her, but Claire stepped back. Don't, she said. Just don't. For the first time, Haley had no words. She only stood there, crying as her sister walked away, her wedding dress brushing the ground, her heart shattered beyond repair. That night, under the soft glow of the wedding lights, Claire finally understood what her mother had meant years ago. You give too much, Claire. One day they'll take until there's nothing left. And now she had nothing left, not her husband, not her sister, not her trust. Only the painful truth that love and betrayal had walked hand in hand down the same aisle. Ethan tried to explain, his voice shaking. Claire, please listen to me. It was a mistake. I swear it meant nothing. I love you now, only you. Claire stared at him in disbelief. Her hands trembled, her eyes red from crying. A mistake, she repeated softly. You were with my sister, Ethan. You lied to me every day. You looked me in the eyes and said you loved me, and all that time, you were hiding this. Haley stood nearby, tears streaming down her face. Her guilt turned to anger. Don't act innocent, Ethan. You told me she would never find out. You promised. Ethan turned sharply toward her. Stop it, Haley. Don't make this worse. Worse. Haley shouted, her voice echoing in the hall. You said you were going to leave her for me. A few guests nearby stopped dancing. The music faded as people turned to look. Whispering spread across the room like a wave. Claire's mother, standing not far away, hurried over, confusion on her face. What's going on? She asked. Her eyes darted between her daughters and Ethan. Why are you both crying? No one answered. Claire's chest felt tight. She could barely breathe. Her mother's expression changed from confusion to horror as she looked at Ethan, then at Haley's trembling hands. Don't tell me, she whispered. No, not today. Ethan finally spoke, his tone growing desperate. It wasn't my fault. She came to me first, he said, pointing at Haley. She was lonely. She wanted attention. I tried to stop it. Haley gasped. That's not true, she screamed. You're the one who kept calling me. You told me you loved me. You said Claire was too busy, too serious, that you needed someone who understood you. Gasps filled the room. Guests looked shocked, covering their mouths, whispering. Some stepped back, unsure whether to leave or stay. Claire stood frozen. Her heart felt like it had been ripped out. She looked at both of them. The man she thought was her soulmate and the sister she had raised like a daughter. You both disgust me, she whispered. Ethan reached for her hand, his voice trembling. Please, Claire. I made a mistake. Don't throw everything away, because of one bad choice. I love you. You're my wife now. Claire pulled her hand back sharply. Don't touch me, she said coldly. You don't love anyone but yourself. Haley sobbed. I'm sorry, Claire. I never meant for this to happen. Claire turned to her, her voice low and steady. You wore white to my wedding, Haley. You looked me in the face and pretended everything was fine. And now you say you didn't mean for this to happen. Haley shook her head, crying harder. He told me it was over between you two. I thought. You thought what? Claire cut her off. That it wouldn't matter if you had him first? That as long as I didn't know, you could live with it. The room was silent except for the faint sound of someone crying in the crowd. Claire's mother covered her mouth in disbelief. My daughters, what have you done? She whispered. Ethan tried again, his voice rising. Claire, please, we can fix this. It doesn't have to end like this. Claire looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time, she saw him clearly. The charm, the confidence, the smooth words, All of it was fake. Underneath, he was just a man who used people to feel powerful. And Haley, her own sister, had let him use her because she always needed to feel special, loved, chosen. "You both used me," Claire said quietly. "Haley, you wanted my love and forgiveness, no matter how much you hurt me. And Ethan, you wanted my loyalty, my care, my stability. You both took everything I gave, and gave me nothing but pain in return." Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but Claire didn't give him the chance. She slowly reached for her hand, slid off her wedding ring, and placed it gently on the table beside her glass of champagne. Everyone watched as she straightened her back and looked at them one last time. Her voice was calm, steady, almost too quiet, but every word cut through the silence like glass. "You both wore white today," she said. "You deserve each other." Haley gasped. Ethan tried to move closer, but Claire stepped back. "Don't follow me," she said firmly. Then she turned and began to walk away. Her dress brushed the floor, her heels clicking softly against the tiles. The guests parted silently, watching her leave. No one tried to stop her, not even her mother, who stood frozen with tears in her eyes. At the door, Claire paused for a moment and looked back. Ethan stood pale and shaking, Haley crying uncontrollably beside him. Claire gave a small broken smile, not out of happiness, but out of strength. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the hall into the cold night air. The lights from inside glowed behind her, but she didn't look back again. She had lost her husband and her sister in one night. But as she stepped into the quiet darkness, she realized something important. She hadn't lost herself. For the first time in years, she was free. Weeks later, Claire began to rebuild her life. The wedding photos were gone, the dress packed away, and the house felt different, quieter but peaceful. Every morning, she forced herself to get up, eat breakfast, and breathe through the pain that still lingered. She started going to therapy. At first, she didn't know what to say. The therapist would ask, "How are you feeling today?" And Claire would only shrug. But slowly, as the sessions went on, the words began to come. The anger, the sadness, the confusion. She talked about the betrayal, the humiliation, and how it felt to lose not just a husband, but a sister she had loved like her own child. Her therapist reminded her, "You can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you heal from it." So Claire focused on healing. She found a new job at a small law firm, not as a big position, but enough to start fresh. Her co-workers were kind, her boss understanding. They didn't know about her past, and for once, she didn't have to explain herself. She enjoyed the silence. No questions. No pity. Just work and slow recovery. At home, she filled her evenings with books, soft music, and long walks. The quiet that once scared her now felt like safety. Haley tried to reach out several times. She sent long messages, saying how sorry she was, how much she missed her sister. Once she even came to the house, standing outside the gate, crying. But Claire didn't open the door. Her mother called, begging her to talk to Haley. "She made a mistake, Claire. She's your sister." Claire's voice was calm when she replied, "I know, Mom. And maybe one day I'll forgive her. But not today." Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't about pretending nothing happened. It was about giving herself time to stop hurting. Ethan, too, tried to contact her. He sent emails and letters saying he was sorry, that he wanted to talk. He even came to her office once, but she asked security to turn him away. She didn't need his excuses anymore. She didn't need closure from the man who had destroyed her trust. Claire had learned something deeper, that peace wasn't given by others. It was something she had to build for herself. One evening, she drove to the ocean, the same place where she and Ethan had taken their engagement photos. She stood on the sand as the wind blew through her hair, and the waves crashed softly in the distance. She took the wedding ring from her pocket. It still shone in the fading light, a small, cold reminder of promises that had turned into lies. For a long time, she just looked at it, remembering everything, the laughter, the vows, the betrayal, and the pain. Then, with a steady breath, she threw it into the water. The ring disappeared beneath the waves, swallowed by the sea. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from release, from freedom. In that quiet moment, Claire realized she had survived something that could have destroyed her. As she watched the horizon, she spoke softly to herself, words that came from the deepest part of her heart. Sometimes the people you'd die for are the ones who'd kill you slowly. But surviving them, that's where love begins again. She stood there for a while, feeling the wind on her face, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled. Not because she was happy yet, but because she finally knew she would be. Months later, Claire went to another wedding, her best friend's. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the soft glow of happiness. This time she wore a black dress, not because she was sad, but because she felt strong. The color made her feel calm, confident, and in control. As she watched her friend walk down the aisle, Claire felt no bitterness. Instead, she smiled, realizing how far she had come. The sound of wedding vows no longer hurt her. They were just words, promises made by people trying their best to love. During the reception, she walked through the crowd, greeting old friends and laughing lightly. The past still lived somewhere inside her, but it no longer had power over her. Then she saw Haley, standing quietly near the back of the hall. Their eyes met across the room. For a moment, everything around them faded. No one spoke. There was only silence and memory between them. Haley's eyes were full of regret. She looked smaller, softer, as if the weight of what she'd done still followed her everywhere. Claire held her gaze, not with anger but with calm understanding. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. That was enough. After a few seconds, Haley lowered her eyes and Claire continued walking. She didn't need revenge or apologies anymore. She had found her peace. Later, as Claire stepped outside into the evening light, a gentle wind brushed against her face. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft orange and gold. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling thankful, not for the pain, but for the strength it gave her. The camera lingered on her face as she smiled, a quiet, peaceful smile. Not from forgetting, but from healing. In her calm voice, we hear her final thought. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering without pain. She looked up at the fading sky, her eyes clear and steady. The woman who once walked away broken now stood whole again. No longer waiting for love or apology, but living fully in her own power. And for the first time in a long time, Claire knew she was freed. Hi besties. Two hearts, thanks so much for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories. See you in the next one. Bye. Sparkling Heart.